In this episode of Unbroken, I talked to Freddie about his experiences in the Appalachian Trail, the challenges he faced during this journey of self growth, and it really, it really was a compelling story. I really learned a lot. I hope you guys enjoy the interview. It's not only about physical challenges, but also the challenge mentally to push yourself through each day and all the experiences and the growth that he had achieved through this amazing journey. So, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode of Unbroken. I look back at the younger version of myself and I see a man who was completely lost.
From the darkest battles to the brightest victories, these are the stories of survival, strength, and second chances. This is Unbroken, where pain meets power and healing begins.
What's up, my brother? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man.
It's good to see you, Freddie. It's good to see you. It's been a minute.
It has. It's been a while. I've been gone for 6 months.
Wow, dude. That's crazy. That's crazy. Appalachian Trail experience. I wanted to have you on. Thanks for taking the time out to be on the show. I think you have a really unique story and crazy experience. I've always like wanted to kind of do some kind of hike like that, but I never really, had the time. Or now that I got a bunch of kids, and it's just kind of it's one of those things where you got to really kind of make it's kind of selfish. You got to have the time to do it yourself, and kind of like basically take 6 months of your life, and it's like a big lifelong project. So. But I wanted to ask you, what made you want to do this big hike?
So a big part of it started back in 2006. I have an older cousin, and she, on a whim, decided she was going to hike the trail. She took about 6.5 months, I believe, to do it, but she did the whole thing, and that's back in 2006. And we didn't have the lighter weight gear and stuff we have now. After that, I hit a point after I went through a divorce where I just, wasn't happy with life, and I just got stuck in a rut for so long. And I stumbled across some YouTube videos of hikers that had documented their journey, and I watched the transformation of one guy, like being kind of where I felt I was, stuck in a job where he wasn't getting anywhere, felt he should have been further along in life, like a lot of us do on a daily basis. And I was like, man, one day, if I could just do something like that, maybe it'll help give me the time to really focus and think about stuff. And, I got to a point where right before I left, I was working 7 days a week. I worked as a project manager, driving an hour each way to work. Wasn't a bad job, paid, pretty good and all, great benefits. I wasn't really happy where I was in life, period. And then I worked as a bartender on the side at a beachside bar over here where I live. And I was working 7 days a week. Like, I had no quality of life. I mean, I was so out of shape, overweight, just unhappy with everything where I was at. And I told my family during Christmas, we got on a discussion about like what would happen if we lost our family pet. And for all my friends and everybody that know me, I had a little dachshund I'd had since I got divorced, and like he was my ride or die. That was my little buddy. And unfortunately, I always said that if something happened to him, and I knew my son, because I do have a son that just turned 25, as long as he was doing good in life, I would consider just disappearing and going and doing one of these long trails. So, unfortunately, on the 13th of February, I had took my dog to the vet. He wasn't feeling good, and he was 14. He had cancer, so I had to let him go. And my son, he's been doing great, works, pretty much full time, going to school full time. Like, I mean, awesome kid. I couldn't have asked for a better kid. Like, he's just a solid, solid kid.
He's
That's
a
one thing
he's
I can say.
he's a great young man, dude. I work with
Yeah.
him, and he's really a fun guy, and you did really well with him. He's really a great young man, and I really enjoy him a lot. So
Yeah. I appreciate that. He is a great kid, but, he's doing great. So I decided, all these years I've done everything for everybody, raised my son, I'm the type I would give my shirt off my back for other people. And there's nothing wrong with being that, but I just felt between the mixture of being lost in life and never doing anything for myself. I remember specifically it was Valentine's Day on a Friday. I went to the bar that I work at and I saw the owner, and she knew how much my dog meant to me. It was the day after I had to put him down, and she was like, "So what are you thinking? How you feeling? I know you're upset. What are you gonna do?" And I looked dead at her and said, "I'm gonna go hike the Appalachian Trail." And she was like, "What, like for a day, a week or so?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I'm going in on Monday morning to my company, and that I worked for as a project manager, and I'm going to resign." And I said, "I'll give them a 3 week notice, and resign." I said, "I'm letting you know as the owner of the bar that I'll bartend at. I'm doing this, so you're going to have to find a replacement." Cool thing about that is they just found people to fill in shifts, and then I came back from the trail and I already had a job waiting on me. So
that's awesome.
yeah, that was a blessing. So yeah, the stars all just started to line up, and I started to say to myself, so many years I've made excuses of why I didn't do things that I always wanted to do. And as you get older, you experience the loss of life a lot more, man, and just the most random ones that you never saw coming. And I was like, I'm on that track that, any day you could go. So instead of making excuses of why I can't go, I'm going to make the excuse that I need to go. I have to go. Like, I have to make an attempt to do something different so crazy in my life that I've never done, that that's what I decided to pick and do. I was like, I'm going to give it my best shot and see what happens. So that's pretty much how I got to the point. And I did. I went in that next Monday, resigned from my job. I worked out the next few weeks and started just purchasing gear as much as I could. Researching, I did a lot of research, and just buying all the stuff I could get, even though I ended up leaving like half of it behind because they got too heavy after a while.
So, what did you do to prepare yourself mentally and physically? I know it was kind of a short period, Valentine's Day, and then when did you head out in March?
Yeah, so I flew out the 27th of March and I started on the trail March 30th of this year. As far as preparation, I mean, mentally, over the years of watching so many people do these through hikes and seeing people that were just like me, they were out of shape, overweight, like you just got to go slow at first. So I gave myself 6.5 months to finish it because if you're going to do the whole thing, you have to be at the summit of Mount Katahdin before the 15th of October because the weather gets so crazy up there in Maine that they have to shut it down. It's too dangerous. So I knew I had a deadline. I just couldn't get out there faster. I would have gotten out there faster if I could, but it was such last minute that, I mean, other than any physical preparation, there really wasn't much. I joked around out there when people knew. They were like, "Oh, you're from Florida," and I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Man, you have no mountains, no elevation, like it's just flat walking." And I was like, "I know." And they're like, "What'd you do to prepare to come out here?" And I was like, "I got off the couch. Like literally, I got off the couch and I came out here." And
Wow.
yeah, that's it. I didn't have the time to prepare. I mean, it would have made things easier at first for sure, but
I wonder if that helped you just kind of get, just say, screw it, I'm getting out there, and never had a chance to kind of change your mind. But you've been thinking about it for a long time. But did anyone try to talk you out and say, hey, man, that's crazy?
that was the thing I was expecting. And every single person that I, confided in at first was absolutely 100% behind it. The first person I called and talked to was my son. And, a lot, unfortunately, it's coming up on 2 years. He had lost his mom, a
Mm.
couple years ago. So I wanted to make sure he was good, with me being gone. I mean, granted, yeah, you can always get back to town, quick flight. Um, but and then I talked to my sister. I was actually scared to talk to my parents. I was a 43-year-old man afraid to say something to his parents, mostly because my dad, he's traditional. He's like, American values,
Hmm.
work hard and retirement. And here I am talking about literally going to live homeless in the woods for 6 months, essentially. So,
That's a good way of
but
putting
yeah, I
it.
mean that's people on the trail, they call hikers, especially through hikers, hiker trash, and
Okay.
there's plenty of times I felt you know like a dirty just dirty person, but that's the nature of the game.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
the best experience. But yeah, and then I talked to my parents and I told them, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. And my mom just kind of looked at me at first and didn't say much. And then my dad was like, I had a feeling something like this was coming. He was like, you only live once, you gotta go. If this is what's on one of your dreams, you are the person who holds the ability to get that dream and go for it.
That's awesome.
So, I had full support from all family and friends. It was great.
So take us through like your first couple days, like getting out there. You kind of not used to hiking, like you don't we don't have any mountains here or whatever. So what was it like for the first week, say?
So I was very blessed that I have my one cousin who has done a through hike. And to this day, she will go out by herself hiking 40, 50 miles and camping in the woods. Like she loves it. She wanted to come out on the hike with me, just to relive it. Her sister also does a lot of hiking, but she does a lot of section hikings for like 2 weeks at a time or so. She just with her career and all, she doesn't have the time, like a lot of people, to be able to do this. So, but they helped me out because they showed me everything I needed and what I didn't need. I mean, they were throwing stuff out of my bag. They're like, "Yep, you don't need this," and I was like, "No, I really want that." And they're like, "When you get out there, every ounce, every gram literally counts." So I was never an ultralighter, but I spent money. It's all about how much you want to spend too. I mean,
Hmm.
to have the lightest tent in the world, you're going to spend $800-900 on a tent.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
yeah, like my tent, I have a Durston, great made tent. I couldn't recommend it more. It's a trekking pole tent, so you don't have poles, so it saves on weight. And most people have trekking poles that are out there to help them while they're hiking. So seemed like it made sense to me. And I still ended up paying $350 for my tent, but it worked phenomenal the entire trail. So 6 months I lived in it, and it's still perfect.
So how
So
is it? It's it kind of costly to do something like this?
yeah, so the initial that was the hardest pill to swallow. The initial, because I had no gear. I mean, I've been hiking. I did hike Blood Mountain back in 2000 or 2021, which is one of the areas that the trail goes over. So I hiked a small little area, like a couple miles of the trail there, and that really just fueled the fire for me, really to want to do it because I remember how much I enjoyed it. Now I've never backpacked a day in my life. I did a quick little day hike and that was it. So luckily they helped set me up. And I ran all my gear by them because they've been in the and doing this for years. So they gave me recommendations on stuff, but a lot of it depends on how much you want to spend. So me personally, for gear, for just the initial startup costs, was probably 1,500 at least. Um, and then I realized I had bought and purchased some things that I didn't need. I ended up either leaving behind or shipping it back home. So it's and I looked for sales as much as I could, but I was on a short time limit, so quite a few of the stuff I ordered had to be shipped, priority. In fact, I didn't even know if I was going to get my tent in time because the place hand makes all of them, and they're a small shop. It's
Hmm.
like 15 employees total.
Okay.
So they probably, when I told them I was doing the trail and I gave them a date, they said, "We guarantee you'll have your tent before you leave."
Wow.
So these gear companies, they are great. If you think about it as a hiker, when you're out there, we're like free marketing for them
Hmm.
because we're wearing their stuff. And people ask hikers, that's a big thing they talk about, oh, what gear do you have? So, they take care of us, obviously. And, but it is. I spent probably at least 1500 the initial startup. Throughout the course, I mean, you got to think I went through 5 pairs of tennis shoes while I was out there, or trail runners. That's what
Hmm.
most of the shoes. I had to buy new clothes because I started losing so much weight that, you know, I had to replace that, had to replace my backpack at one point. So, it adds in extra fees, as far as doing the whole total thing. But the gear, it's just, I've seen people out there with regular Walmart gear doing it. I mean,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
they used to do it back in the day. There's a lady called Grandma Gatewood. She was
Okay.
74, 75 years old when she decided to hike the trail. And this was back in like the 50s, late 50s. So they didn't have, like, you had a map. And I mean, she did it in a pair of Ked tennis shoes. She went through like 2 pair of the whole trail, or 3 pair, I
Wow.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people were tougher back then, I think, right?
Yeah.
Get a little
Yeah.
spoiled. So, did you meet anybody that kind of was in your scenario that just kind of just hopped on the trail and didn't have any training? Because I would assume that people would do like small little hikes for a couple weeks, get yourself conditioned in there. Did you meet anybody like you that just kind of hopped on the trail and just started going at it?
There was a few that I met. I mean, you have such an age range too on the hikers that are out there. I met hikers as old as 85 years old out there, not doing the whole thing. They did long section hikes, but still, they're out there for days at a time.
Yeah.
I met him as young as, literally, he graduated high school 2 months early so that he could do the trail. He was fresh 18.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, and obviously your physical, how you are, your body, and your athletic type, that's going to be a huge, range into it too. Um, so I'm trying. I forgot where I was going with this.
Did you like meet people that and then you were like hiking with them for a few days, or did you just basically stay with yourself?
So I would say probably 90% of the hike I was solo. Um,
Okay.
there are a lot of people depending on when you start. Like when I first started in Georgia, I was only doing 5, 6 miles a day.
Okay.
So there, and they had shelters like every 6 miles, and shelters were, especially just starting out, great way to meet other hikers. Everybody feels a little safer if you're in a bigger group. You learn from each other because some people have experience, some don't. So, and it kind of made everybody just feel better. And then at that point, the further you progress, you start seeing those groups break up into smaller groups, and they'll call those tramlies. Um, I, the closest I got to a tramley was probably in Virginia. It was a group, and I started off with a group hiking around a big. It was like 15 of us, but they were a lot younger than me. Mileage wise, they were wanting to pump higher miles, and I wasn't ready. And then two, it was hard for me, I think, with the age difference to really relate to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept reminding myself, I'm out here for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to be distracted and get away from that reason why I came. I came out here to find me, find out who I am. What do I have in this world? What am I going to get out of it? What do I want to get out of it? So, and to try to accomplish this crazy idea of hiking 2,200 miles basically in the woods. So it's just the age ranges were made it hard for me tramley wise. But when I did find a group, the unfortunate part was at that point, I knew I had to get to Harper's Ferry, West Virginia before July 1st because I was flying home to Florida to surprise everybody for 4th of July.
Okay.
So by the time I got back on trail a few days, or like 6 days later, they had gotten off trail for various reasons, and then they didn't get back on. So after that point, I didn't really. I'd meet some groups, maybe hike around them a day or two, and then usually I just either they'd go into town and I'd keep going, or I'd go into town, they'd keep going. But you run into hikers. I ran into guys in Maine that I hadn't seen since North Carolina. Like,
Oh,
you
so
just,
you would run into people that you might have
yeah,
saw. Okay.
yeah. So I mean, but you have to think, like, you're talking over 2,000 hikers starting the trail. Only about 23% of them actually accomplish the whole trail.
Oh, wow.
So there are people that you'll see, and then there's some you don't, and some that a lot of them have gotten off for various reasons, either financially, maybe some family problems, things like that,
Hmm.
or injuries, big injuries. That's the three main things that take people off the trail.
So there was a lot of people on the trail, like you weren't really by yourself a lot of the times?
No, at first there was a lot of people. I would say in about the time you get closer to the North Carolina border, which is 80-ish miles you have of Georgia, you start to see it spread out a little bit more. Um, so then you'll get to a point, it's just the further north you go, the less and less you see other hikers because they've either dropped out or you're so
Hmm.
spread out that there were times I went 4 days without really seeing other hikers. Um, just camping by myself in the woods, you know. So that's why I said probably 95% of this entire hike I spent alone hiking by myself. So
How was that, like camping by yourself? Did it give you anxiety, or were you nervous about like the wildlife or anything, or were you just in the zone?
at first, I mean, I had my worries. There were a couple nights that I wish I would have had, you know, maybe brought a gun with me, a handgun or something. I didn't bring anything besides just a hunting
Do
knife.
people travel with like a gun at all on the
A
trail,
lot
or?
of hikers, they don't. You really don't need to.
Okay.
That's it's just extra weight, and the problem is once you get to certain states,
You
their
can't
laws
carry.
don't
Yeah, yeah,
reciprocate. Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I wasn't risking. I wasn't going to risk, you know, getting a charge for something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, that makes sense.
So I brought a big, you know, really ultralight hunting knife, and I had another smaller neck knife that I wore all the time, just in case like something happened, I slipped and my pack was choking me. I could just get it
Cut it
off.
off.
Yeah, so I had those two things, but there was a couple nights that were a little scary. But man, I would look in the comments. So we have an app that we follow the trail on basically, and it'll show icons of where shelters are, where there's water, where there's towns, and hikers can go on there and they comment, and you can use the map even if you don't have cell service. It works GPS offline. So really, really great app to use. Most people don't use paper books or maps anymore. They use that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's you know, it would show you all the different places, you know, what you could get, what you needed to get. And I would look for campsites that were by like running streams or waterfalls or, you know, somewhere that like everybody's like, this is a perfect spot to catch a sunrise in the morning. And it doesn't always work out, you know, with the weather, but um, you know, it would tell you really great spots to camp. A lot of hikers would go on there and be like, "Hey, just so you know, you got 2 bars of Verizon service in this area if you
Oh,
camp
okay.
here."
Yeah, yeah.
So, and sometimes little things like that would just encourage you to be like, "Oh, I'm definitely going to camp there as long as it works within my day." So,
Did
but
did
yeah, that's the campsites. That was one of the funnest parts. It was like, you know, where do I want to stay? I mean, there are certain areas you can't. Your designated areas you have to, like
okay.
your parks and all. Like in the Smokies, you can't just put a tent wherever. You have to stay by the shelters to tent or at a designated tenting site. So you can't always do, you know, just find like it's called a stealth spot, like just a spot out there wherever. It's flat enough for me to put my tent. Boom, there's home for the night. As long as I have water close by, I was good.
Okay. So did you run into any wildlife at all? Like any kind of things that was make you nervous? Any bears or anything like that?
Yeah, so I ran into a total physically that I saw 15 bears while I was out there.
Wow.
You hear them. You would hear them as you're hiking. If you like, sometimes I start off listening to music with earbuds on, but then I started thinking about crossing over a snake or something like that, and I was like, maybe that's not the smartest idea.
Mm,
And you would hear the bears crashing through the woods and the mountains, but
fuck.
they're so scared of humans for the most part that they run from you.
Okay.
The first bears that I saw were when I was in the Grayson Highlands, which is an area in Virginia that there's wild ponies that live at the top of the mountain.
Wow.
Like I saw all these, and it was right after all the babies were born when I was going through there. It was perfect timing. I had
That's
pictures with
crazy.
all the babies. Yeah. And they're everywhere up there. I mean, they'll walk right past you. They'll come up and lick the salt, off your leg if you let them. So,
Wow, they're really friendly
um,
like that, huh?
yeah, yeah. So, but that was the first time I saw a bear was coming out of that area. I saw two and one. I saw it on one on a Friday, one on a Saturday. And then when I was crossing from Pennsylvania into New Jersey, I ran into a mama bear with three baby cubs. And
Damn.
that's the more dangerous situation
Yeah.
because the moms are extremely protective. But she knew I was there. I videoed pretty much a large majority of my trip. So I, was actually in the middle of doing a video, and I would see behind me on my screen as I'm doing the video, and I see the mom and the three cubs, and I was like, "Oh my God, they're right behind me!" So I paused the video, flipped the camera around, and it was funny because the mom, she's just going around foraging for food, and one of the cubs was like right on her hip the whole time, like didn't want to leave her side. The
Yeah.
other two, they were playing in the woods. They didn't care about anything. They were just having fun. So I saw a good amount of those deer everywhere, especially when you get in the higher parts of the mountains where people don't go hunt them. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just and in Virginia, they'd come right up to you and try to eat out of your hand.
Wow, that's
Um,
incredible.
yeah, yeah, lots of different birds, rabbits, chipmunks were my favorite because they're so fast. People don't. I'd never seen a chipmunk, so
Yeah, me either.
to see one for the first time, like they are stupid fast, and it was hard. I finally was able in Vermont to get a picture of one because once you got further north, like they were aggressive and they would actually jump down and like stare at you while you were walking by.
Are they
They
big
try
at
to
all?
steal.
Are they
No, they're
big? No.
tiny. No,
Okay.
they're tiny. And even the squirrels. Some of the squirrels are like tiny squirrels up there. They're not fat
Hmm.
like the ones we have in
Yeah,
Florida.
yeah.
So it's yeah. And then snakes. I didn't see. I mean, I saw probably 10 rattlesnakes. And then I saw in Pennsylvania there's a big rocky area you go through, and there were some cliffs that you have to climb across. And I was looking down because I heard a noise, and right below me, about 10 feet, was like this giant bundle of copperheads and
Yeah.
rattlesnakes on the rocks and the cliffs. Yeah, there's probably 30 of them down there. I was like, man.
Screw
So that,
that.
yeah. Other than that, yeah, it's just the only thing I didn't get to see. I was really hoping to see was in Maine. I really was hoping to see a moose,
Yeah.
and I met a few hikers along the way that had lucked out and saw one, but I never did.
Yeah, they're crazy to see in person, man, how big they are. It's
I
freaking
bet.
crazy.
I believe it.
So did you like sleep wise, like did you feel comfortable right away sleeping or how was that? I would have been nervous.
No, I think for the first, I was already used to with the lifestyle I was living. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Getting maybe 6 hours of sleep is a good night.
Okay.
Usually, it was between 4 or 5 hours of sleep I would get. Um, it's just how I am. I was always able to operate on that. So when I first went out there, man, I don't think, and it was cold the first night. When I started up there, it was like in the 30s at night. So
Hmm.
I'm from Florida. We don't see that, but a couple times out of the year, and it was just between that and the anxiety of something crazy. Like actually, I'm actually out. It took me almost a week to realize like you're actually out here doing this. This is something you've thought about and talked about doing for so many years, and now I'm actually out here doing it. So I think the first week I struggled with sleep. It didn't, you know, and when you've been hiking all day, it would take me, you know, 10, 9, 10 hours to hike, you know, 6.5 miles. I mean, I was struggling. I didn't think I would ever even make it out of Georgia. But that's, I would think that all that exertion that I was doing, I would be able to sleep. But I think it was just a different type of anxiety because I never
Mm-hmm.
really get any anxiety, but that would probably be the closest of what it was. But it was a good way, like I'm excited. Like I can't sleep because I want to, what am I going to see tomorrow? What am I going to experience? So further north, and I was into it. Like I'm doing big miles sometimes, 20, 24 miles a day. I'd go to bed real easy after that.
Hey,
Sometimes I'm like, I gotta get, especially being back at the beach, like I just gotta
yeah.
get to it.
So, you were saying like like you would be tired, you get good night's sleep when you're tired and exhausted. I'm wondering, like, did you ever have moments where you're like, man, what am I doing? I can't do this. I'm sore. I'm beat up. My feet are killing me. Like, were those days, did you take any breaks or whatever? You had mentioned that you went home for 4th of July. I'm wondering if when you go home and you're resting, did you have any doubts and go, man, I don't really want to go back? Or how was that mindset? How did you deal with that stuff?
So yeah, I met an old guy one day. He's hiked the trail multiple times. He just goes out there because he's retired and he loves it. And he could tell I was struggling that this one day, and it was early on. And he told me, he said, "Listen, man," he said, "the first third of this trail, it's all physical. It's gonna whoop your butt. Even the people who are in shape, it kicks their butt too. Just don't let them fool you."
Hmm.
He said the second third of it is all mental. He said at that point, physically, you've got this. You're doing 20-mile days probably, but the mental aspect starts kicking in because now at this point, you've been out there over 500 miles. You've been out there for a while. And then the last part of it is kind of a spiritual change that you see yourself go through.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, it was really, really interesting when he told me that. So the first time it really hit me, like I said, I doubted myself when I first got out there. Like I struggled. I was so sore because I hadn't been doing anything, for years as far as physical activity. So I struggled. I ate a lot of ibuprofen and stuff like that, and tried to sleep as much as I could, keep my feet elevated because your feet swell like crazy, going up and down that terrain. And yeah, it was rough, you know. And I would think to myself, why are we doing this? Like, what are we trying to prove to people? Are we trying to prove this to somebody else, like, or is this we're trying to prove to ourselves? So I wasn't sure where I was going mentally with it as far as why I was out there. Like, I had all these goals of what I wanted to achieve, even mentally and emotionally. And here I am, all I could think about was like, I can't even make it out of Georgia. Like, I can't go home. I mean, all these people are, like behind me 100%. And here I'm worried about if I can finish it. So I was like, listen, I would talk to myself every day and say, all we got to do, let's just make it to North Carolina. It's like 88 miles. Like, let's just do that. If we can take our time, but if we hit that, then we at least got a state out of the way. And I wouldn't feel like I had totally just not, flopped. I had failed. So when I hit that first border, man, it was like it sparked something in me. And I was like, okay, I actually did that. I walked the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to North Carolina. And I had watched so many people cross. It's a little sign in the woods, nothing fancy, and everybody take their picture and video by it. And I was like, here I am doing the same. So but when I hit that, I was like, well, what if we hit 100 miles? It's not that much further. Let's just try to get that. And so I would break it down that way. So
Was it
when
so
you would hit,
overwhelming that way?
yeah. And that's how I had to learn to do it because you'd start thinking, man, I just hiked the whole state, but I have 13 more states to hike through. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's insane. And but to break it down smaller, that anxiety would stay at bay. Like it wouldn't, completely overtake you. But eventually, you hit walls. And the best thing for me that I would do, it's a catch 22, is you want to take hikers do two things. If they have to go into a town, sometimes they'll either try to do what's called a Nero, which means you still hike some miles that day into town, so it's not a total day off from hiking. But a 0 day is what we would take, and that's a complete, you don't do any hiking at all. So you're staying basically at a hotel or a hostel. Some of them take zeros in the woods, if they want to. Me, I was going to be a little more fancy at that time. Like, I wanted real food. I wanted to, have a hotel room with a nice bed and a shower and
Mm.
laundry. So that's how you would kind of help yourself out with the physical, and it helped with the mental too, because it's like
It kind of
you're
recharges you a little bit.
yeah, I felt it recharged, but I had to learn that the longer you stayed in town, the harder it made it to get out of town.
Yeah, yeah.
So they would say don't get sucked into the vortex because town is a vortex, and especially if
Hmm.
they have all these restaurants and everything that you want,
Yeah.
you get stuck in town, and then you realize, man, life's really good out here. Like you had a car, you had DoorDash, you had all this stuff. So, it was a mental game at that point, making sure like, hey, I'm gonna stay in town for one day, maybe two, and then I gotta get out. So, but that's you have to do those things to keep you in the game, Otherwise, it becomes so overwhelming thinking that you still have so many more miles to go, so many more miles to go. I mean, you've made it through a state, and you still have like, you know, over 2,000 miles, 2,100 more miles to go. I mean, it's just insane to try to think it and take it all in one.
With,
So,
with all that, did you ever have a moment where you really just wanted to quit and throw in the towel?
so the first time it happened, I'll never forget it. I was coming out of the Nantahala Outdoor Center. The Knock is what we call it, and it's outside of Bryson City, North Carolina. Um, Great for like whitewater rafting, things like that. Really cool area. But the climb out of there, the climb down, you're going from like 3,500 foot, up down to 600 feet within a short distance. So it was to me, one of the harder climb downs and climb out of that gap is what we would call it in between the mountains. So when I was climbing up, it was a straight 7.5 mile climb up in elevation.
Damn.
And it was the first time like it wasn't there was hot out, that particular day. There was no water except for water leaking off of a rock and a moss on the side of the trail that we all filled our water up with that day. That was our first experience dealing with like water not being around, but it happened the whole trip.
Okay.
But yeah, I got to a certain part where there was this tiny little rock area, and you got this tiny little view, and it's like, man, I just did all this, and like I don't even have a view. And I sat there, and I actually took a video, and I even said in the video, I don't know that I'll ever share this with anyone. This might just be a personal video. I was like, but I'm seriously questioning, like, what the hell am I doing out here?
Hmm.
Like, what are you doing? What are you trying to prove? Like, all right, you made it into, another state. Like, why are you still doing this to yourself? Are you happy? Are you getting what you wanted out of it? So I questioned, and I didn't quite think about going home at that point, but it definitely was weighing heavy on me. Like I am missing, my family, and I'm putting myself through like this torture almost,
Hmm.
and because that's when you're in that mindset, it seemed like torture. I can look back on it now and think even on the worst days, it was still amazing. Like it
Yeah.
just amazing experience. I mean, so
When
it's
you
that.
when you go through those hardships like that and face adversity like you have been like in this journey that you were on, man, because I never really like thought about the mental aspect of how it would be so challenging. Because like I thought about putting myself in your shoes when I was doing some research before I wanted to talk to you about this. And I thought to myself, man, you'd be in the middle of the trip and you'd be like, man, what am I doing here? But that's like your mind, those imaginary evils talking to you kind of convince you that, it's easier to quit. It's easier to kind of, and then you pushing yourself through that, dude. It's just like, it gives me goosebumps just hearing about it because I can imagine how, like, much growth you got as a man going through this kind of moments and you're by yourself and you're talking to yourself, you're stuck with your thoughts and stuff. I mean, that's just incredible, dude. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I told a lot of people that. I said, listen, the big part of me also wanting to go out was all the things like as I read a book years ago, and it talked about grief. When you lose people,
Mm-hmm.
that's the one thing nobody's ever taught. You're never taught how you're supposed to have grief, and
Mm-hmm.
so everybody's different the way they deal with it. Well, to me, I always was like had to be the man, and I had to just anytime I lost someone in my life, like I just had to stuff it away in the back of my brain.
Tough it out. Yep.
So, but going out there, you can try to suppress it. You
Mm.
can try it for a long time, but at some point it's going to come out, and you're going to have to you have to face it. Like, and that's, I would try to push myself. That's why a big reason why I did it alone. Like, I wanted to challenge myself to, can I deal with all these things I've suppressed for years in my mind, and let's face it head on. Like, it's just me and my thoughts out in the woods. I mean, let's
Yeah,
do it,
yeah,
you
I
know?
love that.
So
Yeah.
it was definitely a hard thing to do at first. And I would catch myself, like every once in a while, like, oh, you're still holding back. Don't hold back. Like, who you holding back from? Yourself?
Mhm, mhm.
So, eventually I let it all out. Like, I sorted through so many things. And I mean, the wave of emotions, like, throughout the whole trip, you're on your highs, and then you're on your lows. And, the lows are hard. That's when the mental game, like, the missing people is what really started to get me. Like, I was
Yeah,
missing my family.
I wanted to know about how you dealt with that loneliness, like, because that's got to be rough when you're by yourself in the woods.
Yeah. So when the nice thing is through a lot of the trail, you still have some type of cell service in a lot
Mhm,
of areas.
mhm.
So you don't feel completely isolated. Now, some people don't want that. They want to feel completely isolated, and that's fine. But I knew that I needed almost like that extra confidence boost from all my family and friends, to help keep cheering me on. That would
Mhm.
keep me going, because then it kind of made it like, man, you've got so many people backing you. Like, you just have to believe in yourself at this point and just keep going. And so it was a tricky thing you had to juggle all the time.
What was like one of the most beautiful experiences you had on the trail? Is something stand out in your mind where you'll like never forget that experience?
Yeah, so I would say without a doubt my top one. It's probably going to be an area in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. It's called Franconia Ridge, and you're literally walking a ridge walk for almost 5 miles at you're above tree line, so there's no trees. It's like little
Nice.
shrubs, and it's just views all the way around. And if you hit it on a good day, you can see for 100 miles. I mean, just everywhere. And I got up there on the perfect day. It was windy, but it wasn't hot. Even with the sun out, it was still in like the 50s, and just amazing views all the way around. And I just remember each mountain I climbed in between ridges, I would find a rock and just sit there and just watch it. That 5 miles that day took me 10 hours because I kept stopping and taking pictures and just mesmerized by how amazing and beautiful it is. And the fact that, so many of us don't realize, like, we always see as a negative in life a lot. And there's so much beauty out there. You just have to figure out what it is you want to see and go for it. And, you can't hold back all the time. So, Franconia Ridge, hands down, was the most gorgeous. Other than that, the most emotional would be the end when I climbed Mount Katahdin and I stood on that sign, and had my arm up in the air. Like, that's emotional wise, hands down. Like, I haven't cried like that in a long time.
It's
But it was all
incredible.
just happy enjoyment.
Well, it's probably because you pushed yourself through those days that you wanted to quit, and you really learned a lot about yourself. I can't even imagine that growth that you experienced during this trip. Did you have to deal with any really bad weather, like a bad rain, any really cold? Like, were you in any situations where that was kind of a big challenge for you?
Yeah, so that's the weather is definitely something that you can try to plan for out there, but you're always going to not think about something. And when I first got out there, I lucked out. Like I said, I did a lot of research on my gear. So I got all the stuff that, I knew would has been tested on the trail previous, years through hikers. So I trusted everything that I had. I hadn't used it though. That's a big difference. You can trust what you buy, but if you've never used it,
Mm,
in a
yeah,
bad
yeah.
weather situation. So the first experience I had with it, was I had just gotten into North Carolina, and it had been cold from the time I started. You're talking 30s at night. high 40s during the day, maybe
Damn.
50s. So I'm hiking, and I stopped at a shelter for lunch, and I was about 4 miles away from that shelter I stopped at for lunch, and there was another shelter up ahead 4 miles, like it's in between. And I was like, all right, well then it starts raining, and I'm like, well, this is miserable, but it's bound to happen. Then starts hitting me in the head, and it's not rain, it's hail. And I literally just I didn't know what to do. Like I'd never planned to get stuck in a hailstorm. So all I could do is I found some trees that gave me a little bit of cover, and I took my backpack off and I just held it over my head, and I sat there for like 30 minutes while this hailstorm came by. There was ice everywhere on the ground. Um,
Were the
that
hail
happened.
was the hail big?
I would say about gumball or
Yeah,
maybe a
yeah.
little
That
bit
that
bigger.
that hurts though, dude.
Oh yeah, that's why I was like, I'm not gonna try to hike in it. That happened quite a few times. Lots of nasty storms. You would have to really pay attention to the weather, especially if you knew you had a high elevation hike you were doing, because that's the last thing you want to do is be stuck up high, and the bad weather comes in. Probably the most intense that I had was in New Hampshire. It was on the day that I was climbing to the summit of Mount Washington, which is the second highest climb on the entire trail, and it's a very it's way above tree line, and it's one of the most unique areas on the trail to hike because of the weather and because the way the mountain is. So the mountain's in between two ranges, and it's in a V shape, and then at the end of the V shape, the two jet streams meet, and they put the most intense weather in that area. So Mount Washington in New Hampshire has the highest recorded wind speed in the world at like 237 miles an hour. So it's a very intense hike up there. The day I hiked in, it was socked in, meaning it was so foggy and not really rainy, but just misty. So you couldn't see anything. You could barely see 10 feet in front of you when you're going. And at that point, you don't have trees that have the white rectangular marker or blaze on it. So you're following rock cairns that people have built to try to figure out your path that you can only see 10 feet in front. Well, when I finally got up there, the weather at the base of the mountain, it was 69 degrees out, 70 degrees, I think. By the time I got to the top of that climb, it was with the wind chill, it was 22 degrees out.
Ugh.
Yeah. And the winds were blowing, they were gusting over 65 miles an hour at the top. So when I was
Damn.
trying to take my selfie at the summit, like with the sign, I was holding onto the sign and my phone's just shaking in my hand.
That's
I was
crazy.
getting hit in the face with ice. So that was the most intense, it was like being in a winter hurricane at the
Yeah,
top of a
yeah.
mountain. So
That's crazy.
yeah,
That's
luckily they
crazy.
have buildings and stuff there you can go in and get out
Shelter.
of it. Yeah.
How was the sense of community with the hikers? Did you find like they were pretty friendly overall?
Yeah, so that's a big reason why a lot of people that go out and do the hikes, especially that complete it, it's its own community, but they watch out for each other. Are you gonna have some bad apples sometimes? Yeah,
Yeah,
but
well,
that's
yeah.
anything.
Anything in
But
life.
for the majority of it, like there were a lot of girls, that were younger, like when we first started, and there were big groups of us that they would come up to me and say, I don't really feel comfortable. I'm like, well, just hike with us. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I want you to feel comfortable. Everybody should feel comfortable out here. And they really did. They're a very tight knit community with each other. And a lot of them volunteer their time after they've done hikes to go and pass out trail magic. Like it could be something as simple as a candy bar to a hiker they see walking, or I showed up at some and it was full-blown meals. I had homemade chicken and dumplings, and I mean
Wow.
salad and all fresh fruit. But you just those are people who have hiked in the past that are giving back to the newer generation of hikers that are coming through.
Are they known as trail angels? Those people?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So a lot of the people that provide the trail magic, we all call them trail angels. And
Okay.
I met trail angels that just wanted to give me a ride to town. They saw me come out of the mountain, and walk up to the road, and they literally pulled right over and were like, "Do you need a
Oh,
ride to town?"
that's
Yeah,
incredible.
it's
Yeah.
amazing the communities that you go through, and the people. It really is. I went to a thing called Trail Days. It's a giant festival for hikers. That was in May. It was in Virginia, Damascus, Virginia. It's the first town you come into when you get out of Tennessee, and great area. The town gives us this whole area for all these hikers to camp in, and all these past hikers that have done it come out too. And they just, they have music, they're partying all weekend, food vendors, all the different gear vendors are out there. The gear vendors are fixing any broken stuff you have for you basically free or replacing it on the spot. But it was just such a huge community. That's when I realized how huge this community actually is.
Yeah, that's crazy. Did you I know that trail names are really big. Did you end up getting a trail name?
I did. I got my trail name. Actually, it was the day after I crossed into North Carolina. It was a younger group. Like I said, I was hiking with them first, and I was on this cliff overlooking, and it was just this beautiful sight. Even though it was, still spring hadn't come out yet, and so a lot of the clothes that I wear, I had that were my cold weather stuff was green. Like I mean, I have a greenish shirt on now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a color I've always loved, and so I wore a lot of green clothing. And this young group, it was funny because I do smoke, and they every time they came up to a cliff or a vista or something that we're overlooking, they would be like, "Oh, we know you're up there. We can smell you smoking." And so they decided they were going to call me Green Blazer. So green
That's
because I
cool.
wore all the green clothing, and Blazer because I was always caught smoking. So
That's cool, dude.
yeah.
What was the most interesting person you met on your journey?
Whew. I would say there's a guy who's been hiking the trail, and I met him. I felt like he was Houdini. He would just show up. It's the old guy. He was an older guy.
Okay.
If you were to see him, you would be like, man, there's no way he's out there hiking.
Wow.
Not only is he out here hiking, his trail name is Badass and Blind
Badass and
because he
blind.
is he is like 80% blind, and he's out there
Wow.
hiking the trail.
Damn. By himself?
Like, yeah. Well, I
Damn.
mean, other
Yeah,
hikers
yeah,
have met
yeah.
him over the years.
But
So,
mainly, yeah.
but
That's
yeah, there.
crazy.
Every time I saw him, he was by himself. And I helped him one night. He got lost, and it was dark out. It was a nasty storm in Virginia, and I kept seeing this light shine from where the shelter I was in. And me and another hiker started shining our lights back so they could kind of see where we were at because you couldn't see very well in the weather. And he shows up, and he had fallen down, and he had cut himself, and he was hurting. I had been out of water for like 6 hours, and we had no idea because we were stuck in the shelter. He had been walking through that whole storm. So he's done the trail, man. I want to say like 9 times, something like
Damn.
that.
Wow.
And he had surgery to try to fix his vision. He was completely blind for I think he said a couple years. That's why he wasn't hiking those couple years he missed. And then he had surgery, and he could see enough that he felt comfortable to go out and do it. So I ran into him a few times out there.
Did that guy kind of motivate you, kind of like, to
It,
push through, like seeing those
so
guys?
seeing those guys, thinking of like the lady I said earlier, Grandma Gatewood. Like
Mm-hmm.
I read her book and the book about her that was written about her, and I'm thinking, man, these are people who are you think of 70s, like nobody in their 70s or 80s is going to go out there and do that, but I
Mm,
saw them all the time. And I'm like,
crazy.
man, and they're beating me, they're going faster than me. Now, granted, a lot of them weren't carrying as much weight as I was,
Mm-hmm. But
but
still, yeah.
it was like I kept telling myself, man, if these people can do it, I can do it.
Hmm.
And that's when the physical didn't get hard. Really, it was hard at first, but then it wasn't bad until I hit New Hampshire, because New Hampshire and Maine are the hardest states on the whole trail. But the mental aspect of it, that's what you would constantly, I felt like I battled with. But I kept telling myself, man, if these people are out here doing it, you can do it, you can finish this.
So, what did being disconnected from society like? Like, what did it teach you about kind of the modern life? I know you had like internet, you were able to talk to your family, but you're not hanging out on social media, So, being disconnected from that, what did you realize about like what's going on in the modern world?
So there were a lot of times I really didn't know what was really going on, and I I sort of enjoyed it because it allowed me to really focus on myself and my
Hmm.
problems and the things that I wanted to work on. Um, but you get into you put yourself into a rhythm all day long, and so it really makes you think about how so many of us, like I was when I before I went on the trail, was on this hamster wheel. Like
Mm.
every day, I get up, I go to work, I come home from work, I take a shower, I feed the dog, I eat, I do whatever. We're just constantly in this cycle. But out here, I had the freedom to choose how I wanted to do it. I didn't have to conform to society. And I proved to myself that I can live a very simple life. I've literally lived 6 months in a tent in the woods hiking, and you don't have to have all these crazy. I mean, it's great to have, you want a house, you want cars, new cars. You don't have to have all that though.
Hmm.
That's something that teaches you, out there. You learn to enjoy the simplicity of life, and just you're out there just enjoying nature at that point, and just going for a walk. We used to joke around about Forrest Gump. I just felt like walking. You
Hmm.
know, so it's just it really really changes you as a person. It's been hard, kind of coming back into what I would call society.
Mm.
It's made it. I spend a lot of time by myself still, and I'm a very sociable person. I mean, I always have been, but I enjoy my alone time now. Like I can't stress how much I enjoy just going down to the beach. And I live like thankfully 150, 200 yards from the beach. So, I just walk out there like I'm gonna go when I get done with you, I'm going down to the beach. I'm gonna go sit there, and hopefully the moon's still bright tonight. I don't know because I had to work the last 2 nights, but yeah, you just enjoy the simplicity of life, man. It really teaches you that, we stress and worry about a lot of things that really don't matter. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're the person that can change all that. So,
Was it hard to come back to the normal life? Was it awkward for a little bit?
so it was a little awkward, more because you're around so much sensory overload. So here you've been in the woods listening to the chipmunks and squirrels, bark at you, and birds and owls. And then I'm hearing cars and sirens and people, you know, and everybody was so excited, they all wanted to hug me and, talk to me. And everybody's then, I felt like I was, getting pulled 30 different directions. And it definitely made it difficult. Like there are times I've wanted to go out since I've been back, like, oh, I'm going to go out tonight and listen to some live music, and I might get out there and be like, it's too much. Like, I'd rather be back home and or go sit on the beach, So it's definitely I'm getting better at it because I am working as the bartender again at the bar I was at before, and I've been working, a few nights a week, so it's gotten better, but now it just reinforces like when I'm not working, I just want to be at home, just relaxing and thinking about what I want to do next because I don't I I want to get out and explore the world more, So now I'm trying to think of what I don't know that I would do another 6 month long hike like that. I mean, it seems like it was definitely expensive, more expensive than I thought. So, got to save up money for that. But I think I want to do, some shorter hikes, maybe some car camping and then backpacking, like in Glacier National Park or something crazy like that. It's in your blood, it's a lot of. My cousin told me she was like, "Yeah, I think you're going to be hooked and addicted to it." I am. Like I'm kind of antsy. I want to get back out, but I also enjoy my time being home. Comfortable bed, shower anytime I want it.
Yeah.
A real flushing toilet. I mean, all the finer things in life. Refrigerator, any food I want to cook.
What did life on the trail change about the way you see the world now?
Ah, man, that's so. One of the most amazing things was it took me until Virginia to realize the actual physical change I had gone through. But then when I started to think about the mental aspect of it and recording and watching like myself while I was recording. Like I could see how I was changing that way too. And I stopped letting I still had bad days. We're all still gonna have bad days, but I stopped letting so many little things that really didn't matter, get to me.
Mm.
Um, I started realizing like how many times I would be the first to lose my cool big time over the simplest thing, and it's like why? Like what's that going to accomplish? It's not going to be. It definitely. I don't want to say it made me kinder and more gentle as a person, but I feel like it kind of did. I mean, could I still be the person that I used to be? And yeah, that person's still going to be there to a sense, but I feel like it calmed me down a lot. It made me realize that you gotta enjoy your life more. I mean, we get so wrapped up in everything else, we just don't do that. It
Yeah.
really changed me for the good,
So
definitely for the good.
you're not sweating the small stuff anymore. And, they
Nah,
say that a man that can control his violent tendencies but is capable of violence that's a real mark of strength and growth in someone. So I see what you're saying about that. So you were saying earlier when we first started talking that you kind of wanted to find yourself. Did you get out there, searching for? Did you find what you needed? Did you find what you were looking for, basically, on this journey, on this adventure?
I found a good amount of it. I don't know that you would ever find 100% of it, but I definitely accomplished more than I thought I would. Um, for a long time, I've always been wondering, kind of where I belong. Like, I guess after, once you get out in the world on your own, and, like I said, I'd been divorced and was just kind of lost and going all over the place. And I always felt like there was no place that was home to me. So part of walking the trail was like, I'm going to go see all these mountain towns. Maybe I'll want to move there. Uh, but I realized like where I'm at's home, like Florida, born and raised. This is home, and I love it. Like the mountains are beautiful, but there's nothing like the beach and the ocean and the springs, and it's just a beautiful place to live. So definitely, definitely
Do you
made me
think?
think about this being home.
Do you,
And
do you think? Do you think it made you appreciate your home and your
oh,
family and things around you?
absolutely, absolutely. Like that was the biggest thing. Missing all of my family and friends. That made it a struggle. So it definitely, yeah, without a doubt, it did.
What was the first thing you did when you came back? Like when you finished, what was the first thing?
I tried to get a milkshake, and not being funny, but the first McDonald's we went to, when I
Okay.
got done, my dad was like, "What do you want?" I was like, "A quarter pounder with cheese bill with a large Coke, and I want a large chocolate shake." And the ice cream machine was broken.
Of course, of
And I
course.
was like, even in Maine, guys, so the ice cream machine is still broken. No, definitely, I relaxed, but I
Okay.
thought I would be able to just relax, and I haven't. My parents, when they picked me up from Baxter State Park where I finished, I stayed with them in Bangor, I mean, at their RV park where they were at for a few days, and I woke up every morning at 5 a.m. I didn't know what to do. Like I felt like I should be making breakfast or packing up camp, and I felt lost in a way. It was pretty wild. So I thought I would be able to, when I finished, just to be able to relax and enjoy. And I'm kind of getting there. I'm getting better at it, but I still get antsy. Like, man, I should be out there walking. And I think a big thing is I'm gonna start getting back into the gym starting this next week. So
Nice.
that's gonna help. And I want to keep the weight off. I lost 67 pounds while I was out
That's
there. So
incredible, man. Congratulations. That's
thank
awesome.
you, thank you. Yeah, I feel amazing. So I want to keep that up. And then, like I said, I want to do more adventures in the future. So I want to keep the physical part up. Because the mental part, man, it's there. It's ready to rock and roll. I mean, if I had the means to go do another long trail, I'd probably go. I don't know the whole 6 months, but I'd probably do at least half of it right now.
Did the trail teach you anything about yourself that you didn't expect?
It taught me that I hold the key to all my confidence. I hold the key to all my successes, and to own up to all my failures in life. I there's just no other way to really explain that part. I mean, it's going to teach you who you are. But you have to be willing to listen to yourself, and you have to be willing to accept it, even all the bad. Accept it, work on it, move on.
Be honest with
So
yourself.
you have to, yeah, you have to, because again, that's a big part of why I stayed alone most of it. That's all the things I wanted to do. Let's just be completely open with ourselves, and we're gonna watch ourselves transform into that better version that we all know we want to be, or that we know we can be.
That's incredible. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, what advice would you give someone that's thinking about doing the AT?
Definitely. I've actually had quite a few people that there's a Facebook page that I'm on, and it's for the trail hiking class of this year. And a few times throughout my trip, I would post on there, updates of like my physical changes and everything. And I've had so many people that have reached out and are like, "Hey, you gave me more confidence. Like, I've never thought I'd be able to do this, but knowing that you actually went out there and did it, like, is a huge confidence boost." And they would ask me questions like gear and, what do you think about this and that and this brand? And I told them, just, do your research. But, and you can, and obviously if you get, into physical shape, that's only going to help you. That's only going to just make things easier on your life from the beginning. But you have to be mentally prepared for every bit of it. And I don't think most people ever will be. Like, until you're out there experiencing it, yeah, you can sit on the outside and think, oh, yeah, you're just hiking in the woods, physically it's going to be really tough. But that mentality, man, the mentalness will get to you. And that's the hardest thing, because most people don't ever want to be completely 100% with themselves.
That is true.
So,
That's
the
true.
more that you can mentally prepare yourself for it, and obviously, you want to have, if you have family, you want to make sure your family is going to be good. You don't want to put you or your family. I was fortunate to where I was able to go out. I did, make some moves as far as getting rid of things, but I made it happen, just to be able to financially support. I didn't want to have to worry about money out there, for the most part. But I also, tried to be as spend thrifty as I could. So, but yeah,
That's
you got to
awesome.
get the mental aspect. That's what you got to get prepared for the most.
Awesome, man. Freddie, I really appreciate you sharing your story. I think when people see this, they're gonna, be inspired to, do. It doesn't have to be a trail. It's something that you were saying about being honest in life and just realizing that you're the one that controls who you are, and it teaches you to be honest with yourself, and you're able to experience a lot of self growth through these experiences in life. And I like how you said that it taught you to not sweat the small stuff, and how you're more patient, and how you appreciate life now, man. And I think that was a real true lesson. And I think you really found what you were looking for when you were out there, because you found out who you are as a man. And that's
Oh yeah,
a lesson that it took me a long time to realize. It wasn't until I was in my mid 40s before I realized that about me. So it's really great that you've experienced that. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing this experience.
yeah.
It
Thank you for
really,
having
it,
me.
it really showed me a lot of, enlightenment of the mental challenges with that, because I'm really into that part of the whole challenge with life, getting up every day and
Yeah,
pushing yourself and stuff. So, and I feel like you're going to really be able to inspire, which you've already done. And I know your son is super proud of you. I can imagine your family is super proud of you, because you really did something that not a lot of people can accomplish, and you push
wow.
yourself through adversity. So I respect that, man. I enjoy talking with you. I know who you are because we worked together for years. And
Yeah,
it was crazy when Dylan told me that you were going to do the Appalachian Trail. I was just like, wow, that's incredible. I never said, oh, that he's never going to do it. I was like, wow, I can't wait to hear about this experience when you got back,
yeah.
dude, because it's incredible, man. And I just want to thank you for sharing it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
You have a great night, brother. I'll
All
talk to you
right,
soon.
buddy. Yeah, man. You too. I'll see you soon.
All right, take care.
All right, you too.